Are you ready?
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, to Greatest Ever. It's our summer-long series looking at the greatest ever in several categories. Damian Nelson sitting alongside David Hero. What's your problem?
Nothing.
Must have been the tongue lashing you got from the office on that whole thing with Mr. Bolin last Friday. He's never coming on the show again, just so you know.
I didn't think he was like that.
It's a good thing that was an online version.
I didn't think he was like that.
You didn't think? Y'all talked beforehand, and you talked him into saying the things that he said. You ought to be a damn ashamed of yourself.
I didn't tell him to call you a bastard.
For years, the debate has raged on, ladies and gentlemen, as to who is the greatest ever in professional wrestling. And in this summer series, we're going to be looking at several different categories and the finalists in those categories. And this week's category is the greatest heel ever. Now, heel means bad guy. Speaking of bad guys, David Hero.
Yes.
No, we're not going to go there. Wrestling heels.
What? You just can't, like, you know,
take
tease and
a look at the bad guy.
Oh, we're not going to go there. You know, he's not doing very well, is he, right now?
Well, according to what his agent said about him missing a show on the West Coast a couple of weeks ago, he is potentially having some problems again. Wrestling heels, folks, bad guys, have been the catalysts for a lot of fans' interest in the wrestling business. There have been heels who fans have wanted to see beat by their favorite face, good guy, or even those
babyface,
or even those who they wanted to attack themselves. It's long been said that it's easier to be a heel than to be a face, but regardless of that fact, it still takes a lot of work to be an ultimate heel in the wrestling business. There's a long list of heels that qualify for greatest ever, such as Randy Orton, Cowboy Bob Orton, Nikita Koloff, Vader, Jake the Snake Roberts, JBL, the Wrestling God, Mr. Perfect, the Honky Tonk Man, the Iron Sheik, Harley Race, Nick Bockwinkel, Shawn Michaels, and even CM Punk.
Who?
Phil Brooks. But even with this very impressive list, it seems to really boil down to the four that are at the top of the heap. Are you ready for the finalists? Four.
I wasn't aware of four.
Well, you are going to be aware shortly. So you are ready for the finalists.
I guess.
And they are Vincent Kennedy McMahon, Ric Flair, Rowdy Roddy Piper, and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. So let's count down to the greatest heel ever.
Forever, ever?
By the process of elimination. So, David Hero, who would you boot off the list first as we whittle it down to one? The greatest heel ever.
Oh, my gosh. You got Piper, you got Flair, you got Vinnie Mac, you got the $1 Million Man. The first one off, is for me, it's going to either be Ric Flair or Ted DiBiase. It's almost,
really?
Yeah, it's almost a coin flip there.
Really?
Yeah.
Why so?
Well, because DiBiase's heel run wasn't that long.
What? He was the reason for WrestleMania 4. Right. And one of the greatest heel moves ever. He bought a referee.
He did. And I'm going to have to go with Ric Flair going off first.
What?
Because I think Ric Flair was a tremendous heel. He really was.
Limousine riding.
He was, but he never had that.
Flying.
He never had that one main
kiss stealing
babyface opponent beside. You know, he had his program with Sting and with
Son of a gun.
Ricky Steamboat, but I think Flair has to go off first.
Of that list, of those four, you're saying Ric Flair is not as good a heel as Rowdy Roddy Piper, Vince McMahon, and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase.
Because Ted DiBiase incited rage in people. He really did.
Remember when he kicked the basketball? Remember the vignettes?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, just doing, you know, you can mess with someone personally, don't mess with their money. And that, you know, I mean, and like you said, managed with Andre the Giant, you know, it was the Mega Bucks, you know, just so many, the laugh, the way he treated, you know, Damien, I mean,
don't forget Sapphire's Cadillac and her fur coat.
Exactly, yeah. He always stole from people.
All right, so Ric Flair is the first to drop off the list, ladies and gentlemen, leaving three finalists in his place. Vince McMahon, Rowdy Roddy Piper, and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Who are the final two?
Oh, that's easy. For me, the final two, it's Vincent Kennedy McMahon and Roddy Piper.
Okay.
Because Vinnie Mac,
Well, let's first talk about why you're taking $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase off the list. You just talked about how great he is. You said he's better than Flair, which is shocking. I don't disagree with it per se, but it's shocking.
Vince McMahon was the best heel imaginable for the popularity of Stone Cold Steve Austin.
We'll get to that when we get to number one, because we still have to select between he and
I'm just telling
number
you why
one.
I would keep Vince McMahon and Roddy Piper.
But why are you getting rid of $1 Million Man?
Because he didn't have the drawing power that the other two had.
Really?
Yes.
People didn't pay to see him get his tail whipped.
They did, but keep in mind, there was, at that time, it was DiBiase and Savage had their program run.
Uh-huh.
Okay? And then Warrior...
Don't forget DiBiase and Dusty Rhodes as well.
Right, but
DiBiase
I mean,
and...
but as good... DiBiase was fantastic. He was. Great in-ring performer. One of the best. Great technician. But for raw emotion... that's what I'm going by. Heel. You want to see that, who you're going to boo the loudest. DiBiase is going to be number 3, not number 1 or 2.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out how to make sure you don't piss off Kenny Bolin with your list this year.
I won't.
This week.
No, because Kenny Bolin agrees with me. Ted DiBiase, he was never the main event.
Except for WrestleMania 4. He headlined WrestleMania 4. With the Macho Man.
He did, but I'm saying after...
Wasn't advertised that way.
No, but the main event WrestleMania 4 was Hogan and Andre, the rematch.
And that match was not, that was advertised.
It was advertised?
Yes.
Okay. He was in the main event.
The main event of WrestleMania 4 was the tournament itself.
Right.
And the reason for the tournament itself was DiBiase.
When it was SummerSlam, Mega Powers versus Mega Bucks, Andre and DiBiase against Savage and Hogan. And that's when the teeny bikini Miss Elizabeth
teeny bikini.
So I mean DiBiase, great heel, but look at the babyfaces he had to work with. Mm-hmm. Hogan, Savage, Ultimate Warrior.
He had good people
Rhodes.
on the other side of the ring.
Absolutely.
So how about Roddy Piper, conversely, who of course people remember for inciting an audience, and there are several points. Obviously the coconut to the head. His match versus Bad News Brown at WrestleMania 8, who can forget that, when he painted himself half black? Which
that wouldn't happen today, would it?
Probably not, because everybody's so damn sensitive about things. But Roddy Piper, just when you think you have the answers, I change the questions. That's what he said once that stuck with me. Just so great at, for his entire career, really, being a heel. Ric Flair wasn't a heel his entire career.
Well, neither was Piper.
$1 Million, well, for... Okay.
Piper had a great babyface run.
A cup of coffee. When?
Against Adrian Adonis?
Oh, it was before anybody remembers. That, okay, sure.
Roddy Piper was a great babyface because you have to hate someone that much to eventually want to cheer for him.
Yeah, but, all right. I'll give you that.
Of course you will.
He's a heel. Nobody remembers his babyface runs.
I do.
No, they don't.
Bro, because after WrestleMania 2, he's been a babyface the rest of his career.
No, not really. Well,
yes, he has.
He's still heel. He's still Roddy Piper,
when he came back,
he's still that Piper from WrestleMania 1
Adonis.
too.
It was a retirement match. He was the babyface.
So he was a babyface against Bad News Brown?
Absolutely. Who cheered for Bad News Brown?
Only half of them was a babyface.
Why? Because half was white?
Because half was black.
You're terrible. And then in the match with Goldust, he was the babyface there. Mm-hmm. The only match he was kind of a heel was when he interfered with the Mr. America Hulk Hogan Vince McMahon match.
Is he heel or face this time in WCW?
Babyface, because he fought the NWO.
Piper's still a heel. Piper's best work was as a heel.
You need to cut back on the Jameson, bro.
Piper, his best work was as a heel. Fine, I'll give you the fact maybe he had a longer babyface run. But without the hatred for Piper in the early 80s...
Absolutely, they wouldn't have cheered for him as much in the 90s.
Nor would WrestleMania 1 or WrestleMania 2 had been the success that it was.
I agree. Hogan was as popular as Hogan was because Piper was as hated.
Exactly.
I agree.
So is he the greatest heel ever, Roddy Piper?
Yes. Absolutely.
He is the greatest heel
greatest
ever.
heel.
More so than Vince McMahon,
Yes.
who turned an industry on its side by going heel in 1997.
And here's why Piper was a far better heel than Vince McMahon. Look at the time he was a heel in the 80s. Okay? You couldn't get away with as much stuff in the 80s as they did in the Attitude Era.
They didn't need to in the 80s.
There was far more innuendo in the Attitude Era. There was, listen.
Grapefruits.
Oh, hold on.
Putrid.
All Hogan had to do was put his hand to his ear, right, to get the crowd to pop.
All The Rock needed to do was speak a catchphrase.
Austin had to do the single finger salute. That was his deal.
Same thing. Different era.
Not.
Same thing. It's a hand gesture.
I'm saying is they didn't have whoop your ass. They didn't have candy ass. They didn't have, some bitch, all that
but
kind
it was
of
all,
stuff.
it's different.
I'm saying, but he did it in a way where it
Lou
was.
Fez didn't have that stuff either.
But he's not the greatest heel of all time.
Well, we didn't go back that far.
But
And he was a face.
He was a baby face. But Roddy Piper was able to incite a crowd just with the smirk on his face
And the words out of his mouth.
Yes, and he didn't have all the
Accoutrements?
pyro and ballyho that they had in the 90s.
You reading that from Vince Russo?
Of course I have. I used to read his run sheets in TNA.
And you didn't step in then.
Why would I?
Should have.
True story. Honest
saw
to
him
God,
back last week.
Honest to God, true story. Because you bring that up. When I brought in Kevin Nash for some shows for GLCW, he asked Vince Russo to email me the TV run sheet so he would know what was going to be happening. For almost a year after that,
I think it was 2.
maybe it's been 2 years, I was always emailed the TNA TV run sheet.
On the list with the president of the company. So you can take blame for a lot of that.
How?
You should have. A good Samaritan move of some sort may have helped.
Oh, most of them wound up in my spam account.
So Roddy Piper is being deemed, ladies and gentlemen, the greatest
With Vince
heel
McMahon a
ever.
very, very, very close second.
I still think it really boils down to the 3. Vince McMahon, Roddy Piper, and Ric Flair, which quite frankly, Flair in the 70s, early 80s, Piper after that, McMahon after that, maybe they all 3 deserve the title.
They could, but I'm only
because they represented different eras.
Nah, because Piper was in the 70s.
Flair was in a different location.
Yeah, he was in,
Piper wasn't huge in the 70s, though. Piper was big in the 70s.
Flair wasn't big in the 70s either.
70s, yeah, absolutely. Ric Flair
wasn't.
in the territories.
He wasn't a top guy until
What are
the
you, delusional?
80s.
You're crazy. You done lost your damn mind.
He wasn't a top guy until the 80s when he became the world champion.
He was a top guy in the 70s.
No, he was not.
Absolutely he was.
His first title run was in the 80s.
His first title run was 1979, I believe it was.
It
might have been 74 or 5.
NWA World Champion.
Yes.
Bro.
Yes.
Seriously.
Get your Wicca.
No.
Wicca.
No, I don't have to prove myself right.
No, you just need to turn it down a little bit. And you're wrong.
You know what?
Ric Flair was huge in the 70s. Dusty Rhodes was huge in the 70s. Maybe if you start doing a little wrestling research and watching this stuff back, you'd be a little more knowledgeable. I might need to replace you.
Okay, who did Ric Flair beat?
Who did Ric Flair beat? He beat Harley Race.
In 1979?
In the 70s he did.
Oh, bro.
I am 97% certain he did in the 70s. He beat Harley Race for the NWA Championship. A belt I've held in this hand.
If you are wrong, the trophy comes back full time.
What trophy? My trophy? Yeah, right here. Because I am the PWR draft winner.
How does yours?
Two-time.
Oh, see.
Just put that right there. And super. Roddy Piper, ladies and gentlemen, is the greatest
It's going to be a commode.
heel ever.
What is that in there?
Next week, it's yet another edition of the greatest ever.
Serious?
Yeah, we're doing this all summer. It's about 15 weeks.
No, what's in there?
Leading up to Mount Rushmore. We're going to build wrestling's Mount Rushmore, ladies and gentlemen. We know 3 faces. We know Hogan's on it. We know Austin's on it. And we know The Rock is on it. But who's that 4th face, folks? We're going to have that discussion coming up at the end of the summer here on The Greatest Ever. For that one, this is Damian Nelson saying thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you Friday for yet another edition of Feedback Friday without Kenny Bolin.